Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number BB5002-350-630. This is a 3.5 inch by 3.5 inch full mortise, standard weight, ball bearing, stainless steel base, satin finish hinge, is what that is. Let's start by dissecting this part number. First of all, BB stands for ball bearing. This is going to be a standard weight hinge, which we'll get to more in a moment. But on a standard weight hinge, there are two bearing packets. The 5002 means a number of things. First of all, it means that it's a full mortise hinge. You can see from the swag on the hinge leafs there that when they're brought parallel, they're meant to be mortised flush to the edge of the door and frame. It also means that it is a 5-knuckle hinge, and hence the two bearing packets, because in that part number is also inferred that this is a standard weight hinge, and this hinge would be 123 thousandths thick is a standard weight hinge, whereas a normal 3.5 inch residential weight is about 89 thousandths or something closer to that. Also in this part number means the 2 in the 5002 means that this is a solid stainless hinge. The base material is stainless steel. Okay? So that part number is going to give you full mortise, 5-knuckle, standard weight, stainless steel base hinge. The -350 is a reference to the size. That means that this hinge is 3.5 inches tall, and the height is the first dimension on hinges like this, so you call it 3.5 tall and 3.5 wide. Doesn't matter so much, I suppose, when it's a square hinge, but if this was 4 by, well, let's say 3.5 by 5 or 3.5 by 6, a wide throw hinge, it means 3.5 tall, and then the width. So anyway, width first, then, height first, then the width. The 630 means two things. It means that it is, again, stainless steel, slightly magnetic, and stainless steel picks up some magnetic properties when it's when it's gone through tooling or machining. And it also means that it is in a satin finish, a brushed finish. Okay? If this was 629, it would still mean stainless steel, except that it would be a polished stainless. Where would this hinge be used? Most likely in a residential application, because it's 3.5. In a very humid, moist application. You might have a coastal property, you might have something in the Pacific Northwest, you might have something that is a door to a pump room for a pool in a condo building. You could have balcony doors in that same condo building that might use a 3.5 inch hinge. And stainless steel is just significantly more robust at handling a more corrosive environment like that. That defines the part number. Now, there is a link below this video to what is called a cut sheet, and that cut sheet gives you all of the dimensional properties about this hinge that we haven't covered, and namely the location of holes. What's also handy to know is that the table that's in the lower left-hand corner of that cut sheet, you can see how the part number changes as the type of hinge changes. Now, it's not readily obvious, but 5,000, that last 0 means it's a steel-based hinge. You go over to the stainless column, you see it turns into a 2, and a 1 is for a brass or a bronze-based material. As you change that value from 5,000 to 5,010 or 11 or 12, that becomes a wide throw hinge. If you go to an 8,000 series hinge, it's a 3-knuckle versus a 5-knuckle hinge. BB gives you ball bearing, and it's LB if it's an 8,000 series hinge. That's a concealed bearing that Bommer would do on their 3-knuckle hinges. So now you can see how that part number changes to give you all of the different derivative types of hinge that you can get on this from Bommer. Now, speaking of the screw holes, screws are included. Those would also be stainless steel. Okay. This hinge is going to be for medium, average frequency doors. It is stainless steel, and that is a stainless steel pin. Speaking of the pin, that is what we would call a button tip. Looks like the button on your coat. You can order it in an urn, acorn, steeple tip as well. Ball tip, of course, being the most common decorative tips. Typical removable pin. You can order this with a few different security features. First of all is the NRP version, which would give you a set screw drilled and tapped into the barrel of the hinge, and then a groove is cut into that pin so that when the set screw is seated, that groove in the pin would prevent the pin from being driven out. And that is all but incredibly difficult to get through when you have that set screw set. You can also get a security stud, which would be a piece of metal attached to the hinge here, and then a hole so that when the leaves were parallel, even if you drove the pin out, you couldn't tip the door out, is that point. You can get radius corners on special order. Obviously, that square corner, you might do a 5/8 or a 1/4 inch radius. That does drive the cost up, but we can handle that on a special order basis. The name Bommer is synonymous with all things hinge related. They're most commonly known for their double-acting spring hinges that you see on restaurant doors. The last thing I'd like to point out to you is the Bommer logo, and right above it says Made in USA, a fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I to represent them. If you have any questions on the Bommer BB5002-350-630, full mortise stainless steel 3.5 inch hinge, or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.